Hello and welcome. I'm Phyllis Smith, co-founder of Live Free Yoga, and joining me is the other co-founder, Tida Chambers. And we're just going to chat today about something that Tida said one day, and I said, "Oh my God, we have to talk about that." And it's called "Prosperity is an Inside Job." And it came up because we're going to be doing this webinar in January, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But let's just go ahead and take a deep dive into what that even means, Tida. So what does it mean, prosperity is an inside job?
So one of the things that I've come to understand and know pretty deeply is that our thoughts create things. And those things can include our emotions. And and if you think about when we're having a great time in life and life is good and time flies. And then when things are challenging, how do you perceive it? And so it gets slow, it gets hard. And that in itself is the pointer to the fact that what we create inside of ourselves through our thoughts and our feelings is really part of that inside job. So we all have to learn to reflect inward and realize what's going on. And one of the things that came to me in understanding is that if we're able to understand, basically, there are three basic truths that have guided me in my own ability to change. One of the things that always impressed me was when it was pointed out that we either come from one or two places, love or fear. And what do we choose? And so and if you think about it, it's kind of like the happy, sad thing. How do they feel different? It's inside of us, and we have to become aware of that. So one of the first things we have to do is recognize what kind of underlying beliefs we have, right? So the recognition of our own personal philosophy. Part of what we're all here to do is to explore that and to identify when we might have something that actually keeps us down, that limits us, that keeps us in that place of worry or doubt or fear. And when we're in that space, we actually are repelling what we want. So we have to be willing to self-reflect, to look within and to see, what do I believe? My belief is we all deserve to have everything we desire and we need. And it's just a function of aligning ourselves and realizing that if you as a child were taught that money doesn't grow on trees, then it's going to make impressions in you. That means, gosh, it's hard to grow a tree, so it's hard to make money. And prosperity, again, that's what most of us think about. I mean, it certainly is what, when I first started on my spiritual journey it's about, once I get money, then I'll have everything, I'll have happiness. But that's not really how it works. We have to start inside and then move into the outer realm.
I'm going to just stop you for a second. So
Sure.
let's before we get into those three basic truths,
okay,
that you'll be outlining, and we'll go into that in a little bit. But you'll have these three basic truths to prosperity. Let's just first discuss what prosperity is, and it could mean different things to different people. Sure. But at the end of the day, like you were just alluding to, prosperity, people could think prosperity means just money, having money. How is it different than that?
And in a very simple, cut to the chase way, it's the difference between surviving something and thriving in something. So whether that's health and you're barely just, can't get out of bed and you've been sick, and I mean, COVID this year has given us plenty of reminder of how important it is to, when we're healthy, we have taken that things like health for granted. So whether it's prosperity in health, prosperity in our relationships and having connection. I think as human beings, we're not meant to be fully isolated, even though this year we have been isolated. more so than years, at least in our lifetime before. And so we have to learn how to find connection and value and purpose with what we're doing instead of feeling like we're alone. And so, again, for me, when I think of prosperity, whether we're being prosperous in health, whether in our connections and relationships with others, and ultimately, it's also about understanding we all have something to give. And when we give, whatever that is, whether it's our patience, our kindness, our care, we give that into this world, it makes a space to receive what we desire and need. And
So
so
that's a
prosperity
great.
is not surviving, but thriving. And that's the way I think of it. I think of like water, abundance, in all things, in all ways.
And I think it's important what you just brought up here about giving. So surviving versus thriving. And when we thrive, one key component of that you just brought up is giving. Yeah. When we give, it helps us thrive because what is it actually? I mean, it is something that comes from our heart. And you always talk about doing things from your heart and living, from our heart space instead of our head space. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's really important, that when we come from our heart space, our space of love, and you in the very beginning, you said we come from a place of love or fear. So I think going back to that, this idea of giving is coming from that place of love. When we give love, yep, then we'll receive love. We'll be more open to receiving it. It goes both ways.
It does. And so that's part of like flow, right? So, and think about it, when you find that perfect little gift for someone and you feel that delight of them receiving it, that's the gift you get, right? That you have the thoughtfulness to give something. Now, we can talk about actual things, but it's also just giving of yourself, your compassion, your care, your patience. And so what we give is so much more than just things. And I think that's part of that inside job. It's realizing that.
It's that inside. It's, as you talk about, going from the inside out. When we're thriving, it's internal. We're thriving. We feel. I mean, I experience this with you in our business. In my life, when I'm out walking, in nature.
Nature is a great way to pick up on the abundance. It's all around us.
It's so true. And coming from that space of love as opposed to fear, there's been a lot to be afraid of this year, a lot. And we've all been there. I mean, what's around the corner, what's next, even just the idea of seeing people wearing masks, that's fear in our face.
Sure.
That's fear.
And
so
we're not
how
able
do we
to express, So.
Right. So how would you think how do we turn that image of that fear into love, into an experience of love?
It requires two qualities. One is an openness first to identify, oh my gosh, I'm coming from this place that doesn't feel very good, and saying, I have free will. We have a choice, and it's the free will. It's our divine birthright to choose. Do I want to stay in that space of being in fear, doubt, and worry? Do I want to live my whole life that way? Or am I going to choose to find the good? It's that silver lining. There is always something. And that's one thing that I know I've been building for many years. As soon as I have a negative, what we would call a challenging experience, an irritate, whatever, for me, a lot shows up as irritation. And then I have to go, do I want to stay in this space? No, I'm going to choose to find something better, something good. And it's that, again, the part of it is we have to self-reflect and then realize we have a choice. How are we going to choose to respond? And that's the willingness, and that's a key. if you're not willing to try something different, then nothing changes until we're willing to change. So
Yeah, and that self-reflection, it's, knowing that we're feeling fear, doubt, worry. But I think, don't you think it's important to also know where that's like, what is the trigger? Tida, what triggers your irritation? I'm not saying I'm saying you in particular, you could answer that in particular, but when we ask ourselves that question, what, why, what is causing us to irritate? And then that's going back to the truths you were talking about. One of the first of the three basic truths to prosperity is recognizing that. So let's go back and revisit that and begin with, tell us about your 3 basic truths to prosperity.
So, the first one that I had mentioned before was just being able to realize we get to choose our personal philosophy. Now, as children, our parents and through ancestor, through the family lineages, we may be impacted by limiting beliefs that we weren't even aware of. And, there have been many books written about how to uncover your unlimiting beliefs. And that's part of all of our work, is to realize, are we going to be limited by something that we didn't even choose? It was something maybe that, your grandparents taught your parents, and now your parents are teaching you money doesn't grow on trees, as an example, right? So we all have to say, I'm not going to adopt that particular philosophy, and I'm going to choose one that creates what I deserve, I need, I desire. And that's instead of the limitation, the abundance, for example, and saying that there's abundance in all things if we're willing to see it.
Let me just follow up with that. Yeah. So it's not easy when we are raised a certain way to shake that off.
Nope.
So what is the work? Like, is there a step 1 to begin the process of shaking off those limited beliefs?
So I believe for myself, I'm going back years here where I had to identify things from my own childhood that I just kind of adopted. It really is a journey. And I believe part of what we're all here to do is to discover ourselves to our fullest capacity, and to know that we are all here and we all have something great to give into this world, whether it's to our family, to our children, to our community. And so we have to be willing, again, it goes back to, in order for you to take that step of, it starts with, again, being willing to be honest and self-reflect and say, are there things that, that push my buttons? Maybe it's triggers, and identifying those things that trigger me. So going back to the irritation thing, what I realized, because I was always very shy growing up, and I had something that I understood, but I couldn't say it. I couldn't bring it out. It would take people like you asking me to go a little deeper before I would understand that I had something of understanding. So my irritation was the frustration that things were being said, but I could give more than I was even saying. And so that was my little nudge, if you will. So identifying what your triggers, that's a word, or what sets you off is a good place to start. What brings you, into a state of ease and peace versus what puts you into that place of challenge, or as it was for me when I would get impatient or irritated with somebody.
I think too, so, our work is about bringing mindfulness practices and helping people discover and create a consistent mindful practice, because we've experienced ourselves that is one thing that we can do. Doesn't cost any money. We have it accessible to us at all times.
Right.
That helps us get into that place of present moment of ease. It's hard to, when we could recognize that we have these limiting beliefs, but we first also have to know what it feels like to have that flow, to have that ease, so that we like it better. Like, we don't know what's better if there's something better around the corner than what we know. Do you agree with that?
True. And in fact, as you mentioned the mindfulness, and you asked me to bring about like some simple steps. The first step is checking in with yourself. What's going on in your thoughts, in your mind, and what's going on in what's going on in your life. If you're experiencing a lot of challenge, a lot of frustration, it's the way to say, okay, what part, that's when I start to go, okay, what am I responsible for here? What part am I playing in creating what's going on in this outer? So checking in with yourself and saying, is this state the way I want to exist? How long do I want to stay irritated or upset or worried about something? That's my sign when I check in, to say, is this, and that's where I'll use my will to say, I'm going to move my attention to more towards what I want to experience. But it does, again, start with just being, as you said, present with what's occurring. And maybe the outside is reflecting what's inside of us. Sometimes it may be that we walked into a situation where we felt pretty good, and we walk in and things are kind of moving around. I mean, at work, that can occur, I think. So just learning how to check in with yourself, and then realizing that we do have the ability to change ourselves through our thoughts and our mind, our imagination.
And you just said it, willingness. So that's actually your second part of your 3 basic truths for prosperity. So willingness to change. And that's hard for some people, but willingness is the second step.
Correct. And then willingness, instead of choosing to be as much, how many times when we're thinking about something, or we realize we're actually worrying about something, instead of producing with our mind, which is where our true power resides, to be more in our hearts about it. So we have an intelligence that's in our brains, but we also have the intelligence of our hearts. And so again, if we go back to love and fear, if you think about fear, it's usually because, okay, we can use something primal, running from the bear. You're trying to survive here. And so you're just like, I need to react, get out of the way. But at this time in the world, we're not as much about running from the bear. It's more about the everyday things that we're faced with, the challenges, the problems, the difficulties, the inconveniences that occur every single day, and how much we choose to stay in our head about it versus the willingness to say, take a breath. Once we've checked in, just taking that pause, being able to connect to ourselves in a different way, and being open to connecting to that more powerful force of love for ourselves, love for the truth of a situation versus, possibly we're not telling ourselves the truth about, if worry, to me, according to Walt Disney, is the worst use of imagination. So if we find we're in that state, can we instead say, this is in my heart, not what I want to experience? And that's that willingness to move from head to heart and to begin to change our experience. Really.
And I think too that when we fear and the love and fear and emotions show up in our body. So sometimes our bodies can actually feel things before we really know what it is. So, for me, when I get worried about things, I'll start feeling it in my stomach, right? And you have, your, right?
Neck and shoulders, yeah.
Neck and shoulders, right? And so that's another way to identify. So we've identified, first thing is we got to self-reflect, and we got to say, hey, something's not right here. Maybe checking in with our bodies, and how is it feeling? You know, you get that gut feeling like, ooh, something's just not right. And then the second is the willingness to make the shift, to make the change.
Yeah.
And this, of course, it leads to the third step, your three basic truths to prosperity, which is to play.
So that really we're all in life, and life is the game to be played to the best of our abilities. And can we learn to play in our lives, and to realize that we're here to not just work hard and pay our bills, but we're here to enjoy life, to love, to learn, to grow, to develop. And when we're willing to get completely, well, it's what happens, I think, is we get very sort of focused and engrossed in, oh, gotta pay the bills, gotta, all the responsibilities. And we forget to lighten our own loads by realizing, hey, how am I playing this game of life? I know for myself, if I'm not in a good space for whatever reason, it's only me who can do something about it. I can choose to say it's my husband, but it's really an inside job that I have to begin. And so for me, when I think about playing life as a game, now, I was an athlete in high school and college, so I love playing, but maybe you like playing board games, but if you think about children, they've got what us adults need to remember, which is there's a curiosity and again, that openness, willingness to play, to enjoy, to lighten it up, because it can be very easy to get bogged down with the responsibilities of life, instead of understanding that we're all here to really live a happy life. Not all the time, because that's not always, we don't really get to experience the good until we've experienced some of the dark. So this year to me has been a blessing, because while we've had to completely change our lives, it has also given us a little more time to be more inward and more connected, maybe on your walks in nature, to different things, to slow down, because we were all moving at breakneck, fast pace, and maybe not playing. And I think this year, while it has been quite challenging and continues to be challenging, has also provided us with some blessings in the midst.
That's, and I will say that a blessing for me has been the similar, where we have to slow down, because I'm like this thoroughbred at the gate, it's like, open up the gate because I got to run, but it's really forced me to go inward. And that could be hard sometimes, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And some things sometimes frustrating, of course.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of that, but it's giving me the blessing is the appreciation of
gratitude.
When we do finally get the chance to hug. I miss it. I just miss it. Like right now, if I hug someone, it's sort of like off, and I turn my head,
Yeah, mask on, and there's not a full-on embrace, right?
Exactly.
It's kind of a side thing. Or I do this, and it's like, that's not the same. It's not the same.
I just can't wait to just put my arms around people I love and care about, and just hug them so tight, and I just don't want to let them go,
Yeah.
So if we just learn, like the dark and light, we learn this has really caused us to think about and appreciate, what we don't have, or what we do have available to us that we take for granted.
And so in that joy, Phyllis, and so joy leads us to progressing. And so if we can find every day a moment or two of when you are experiencing your joy, when you are experiencing that lightness, that's when we can really harness that and grateful. And gratitude, which I would say would be a great practice, and something, I mean, I start my day with gratitude. I create my day before I ever look at my phone, before I do anything else. I imagine what it is I desire to experience, what I want to accomplish. Yeah, we've all got to have a to-do list and to take actions on what we need to get done. But it does start from, from the inside. What do I want? What do I need? What do I desire? What do I want to see happen throughout a day? And, we can expand that from being very simply starting your day with a little being grateful for what you have. What that does is it makes huge space for more. Not that that's the intention. When I practice gratitude, when I feel thankful, it opens my heart and gets me a little more out of my head and into that space of joy.
Yeah. And we will on a future talk, what we called our future conversation between you and me, the three G's of happiness:
Yeah.
giving, gratitude, and grace.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Having when I meditate, I always end in my mind with, may the universe give me the strength, the wisdom, the capability, the courage to face challenges and obstacles with grace and ease. And I think when we can do that, then it leads to further happiness. But that's for another time. Right now, I do want to show, I'm going to share my screen because I want to tell you guys all about this is a webinar or a workshop coming up. It's a free online workshop. And this is about prosperity, lighten your path to prosperity in 2021. And the second line is probably even the most important: discover your power to create sustainable change from the inside out. And that's what we've been talking about, that prosperity is an inside job. We got to start from the inside, and then we can make things and create prosperity in our lives, attract prosperity in our lives. And this is on January 7th, and 2021, 6:30 to 8 Central Time. And then just what it will be, it's an hour and a half. I'll be basically the host or MC, whatever you want to call it, but really it'll be an engaging experience with starting with Tida, and she's going to begin with some mindful practices. And before you go, Tida, I'm going to ask you just to give us one mindful practice to transition us into the rest of our day. So you'll be starting it out. And then this is the outside part of it, where Christina Sigurdsson, she is a professional organizer. So she will be talking about the different ways, the triple C method on how to get your life organized. So we're getting clarity starting from the inside with Tida, then on the outside, clearing out your space. And then Damien Nordman is a mindful business and a mindset coach. And he's going to be helping us play in prosperity or take action with that clarity that you just experienced. So I want to tell you about that, and how you find that. You can go to lighterbeing.net. This is one way, and I'm just going to keep it simple. And if you go to events, you will see this is where you can go to register. When you click on register, that registration page I was just on will pop up there for you. And then when you click through, right there, that's where you're going to put your name. And I think it actually just comes up with all your stuff. And then you'll be registered. It's going to be online and it's free. So I hope you can join us there. So Tida, if you would just take us out and with a mindful practice, whatever you choose, and help us transition into the rest of our day.
All right. So if you're in a place where you can be easily seated, comfortable, whether your feet are to the ground or whether you're sitting maybe cross-legged, just go ahead and direct all of your attention inward by closing your eyes first, softening now every part of your physical body. Can you begin to feel the softness of your jawline, your tongue, your cheeks, all the muscles in your face and neck? Just soften and release any observances of anything outside of yourself and being present with yourself in the now. Part of mindfulness is being present and aware with ourselves without judgment. So just being aware of your body, any tension you're letting go of, letting any thoughts that arise just pass like clouds in the sky, allowing yourself to feel the sense of being connected now as you gently begin to explore your breath. We'll take 3 deep breaths together, slowly breathing in through your nose. Imagine filling up your lungs like you're filling up a balloon with air, and then slowly exhaling, emptying the lungs, letting all of thoughts, sensations go. So breathing in through the nose, filling the lungs bottom to top, and exhale through the nose, emptying the lungs slowly. Take one more deep breath in. Take in what you want, you need, you desire for your day. Love, happiness, contentment, patience, whatever it is you need. Exhale, let go of everything else. Then gently bringing your hands together to the center of your chest. Part of our mindfulness with a slight upturn of your lips is to honor yourself first, to be honoring, to be allowing, and to be loving ourselves is the beginning of a lifelong journey. So gently setting your own intention for this week, flutter your eyes open and let yourself enjoy the rest of this day, and finding that we all have our inner work, but we can all have fun in creating our lives together.
Thank you, and namaste.
Namaste.
All right, have a great week. I so appreciate you, and I just enjoy our partnership and our friendship.
Me as well. Thank you, Phyllis.